CA here. Now, I'm not used to this kind of topic, but after thinking about this, it gave me some nostalgia to my days in college when I wrote essays that actually provoked me to think critically in order to get a good grade. This time, I'll be using a video instead of paper, and I won't be graded on such a notion. So ever since the high school years, I've noticed that there was a trend that's been growing for people that were in my age during that time in high school, if senior year. And they were starting to be older people that were into cartoon shows like Adventure Time. Now, at first, I didn't understand it. They didn't have kids, and they weren't pedophiles either. So why should grown adults watch a kid's TV show? This was something I didn't care for at the moment, but later on, shows like My Little Pony, The Amazing World of Gumball, Gravity Falls, Avatar, The Legend of Korra, Steven Universe, and even the Netflix original of Voltron began a wave of adults watching TV shows that were kids' cartoons. As I was being curious at this point, I even decided to watch a couple episodes of My Little Pony to see what the fuss was about. While I am not planning on being a brony anytime soon, I did manage to see and say that it's an okay show to watch for a person of my age. SaberSpark did a great video on this topic, and he actually makes a good case to show that modern day cartoons aren't just for kids these days. So my case will not be to argue for that in this video, since he already covered it. Link to that will be in the description below. However, there is something I thought about when talking to a few friends on Twitter like Aleximus Prime, Saltier Pidge, among others, that have led me to wonder a question that's been argued about among my religion. Is it wrong for Christians to watch these shows? Nowhere does the Bible forbid this, since there's no reason to. It'll just simply be a Romans 14 issue, meaning that it's up to the individual Christian. However, I notice some sense of hypocrisy at times. Some people won't criticize the watchers of Family Guy, The Simpsons, or Archer, for example. And trust me, I can understand the hypocrisy because I was one of those hypocrites. These are shows that aren't suited for kids due to their content being very mature, such as foul language and sexual content. Not exactly a better alternative for adults compared to the other two options that you have. At least My Little Pony doesn't show blood in a battle scene. Now, I remember watching Archer and eventually lost interest after the plot started to change, as well as the language just becoming way too much more excessive than it started off as. If I did want to avoid this language and the sexuality that was going on with it, as well as the fact of the problem with the plot, well, I could have just forsaken TV altogether, or I could keep control of what I watch. I decided to keep control of what I watched and found other shows. However, I began to then also ask hypothetical questions. Are these shows for kids also the perfect replacements for adults who happen to be Christians? If you think about it, the TV rating system itself is not always to say who is it intended for, but just who is safe to watch it. It was mostly made so parents could know if the show was safe for kids to watch before it began airing, since the shows in the 90s were starting to contain content that may be questionable. So it's not always saying that the TV Y through G stuff is all childish. But then you may ask, what about the shows on PBS and such? Well, I grew up with that stuff like Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood and Sesame Street. However, there is a difference between that stuff and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles as well as Scooby-Doo. The PBS and Nick Jr. kind of shows were aimed for the young kids to start teaching stuff that we needed to know in a way that spoke to us. It was educational while fun. Yet, when Nick Jr. turns itself over to Nickelodeon, then we see silly nonsense and stories that really are just there to make us laugh. It's not trying to teach or enforce life lessons all the time, though they can certainly do that. Back to my point, I think this is actually an interesting perspective, and that when Christians who are looking for a better alternative to animes and cartoon shows these days, as adults, they can simply turn to some of the stuff that's out there that is popular. Adventure Time, Voltron, My Little Pony, all these fandoms are growing with adults, and not in a creepy way. They genuinely love the show, and honestly, this can lead to a big impact in the world of ministry. There's already a guy on YouTube named Shady Oaks Ministries who does video Bible studies and even does these topics that correlate from episodes of My Little Pony and then connects them to displaying Christian themes that is found within the episodes. And he does it very well and very biblically. Who knows? This could inspire other fandoms like Voltron's current growing fan base, as well as Steven Universe and others, to get certain Christian celebrity fans that can make an impact on the internet and at conventions. I think most people today take this world for granted, and that when they decide to shelter themselves from these cartoons due to the stereotype that they seem childish, they can miss out on not just the opportunities for decent entertainment that is innocent, but also Christians can miss out on knowing something about a fandom and getting involved in the fandom so that they can then help reach out to them with the message of the gospel. This would truly be a great thing for us to do if we are desiring not just for certain entertainment, but also to know certain fans, so that way we may reach out to them in a better way. This has been the Christian Anarchist. Have a good day. Critics who treat adult as a term of approval instead of as merely a descriptive term cannot be adult themselves. To be concerned about being grown up, to admire the grown up because it is grown up, to blush at the suspicion of being childish. These things are the marks of childhood and adolescence. And in childhood and adolescence they are, in moderation, healthy symptoms. Young things ought to want to grow. But to carry on into middle life or even into early manhood, this concern about being adult is a mark of really arrested development. When I was 10, I read fairy tales in secret and would have been ashamed if I had been found doing so. Now that I am 50, I read them openly. When I became a man, I put away childish things, including the fear of childishness and the desire to be very grown up.